Magazine.
I am your host, Doc Rodden, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in streaming and video on-demand horror movies. Each week, my co-host Jeff Mohr, Crystal Cleveland, Dave Dreher, and I will take a look at various spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings. With me this week is my co-host, Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. Getting ready for a heat wave. It's going to be like 40 tomorrow.
40.
Woohoo!
Hey. Yay. Well, we have a pair of films for you this week, Jeff. I hope you like them. That's what we do every week. We take a look at a pair of films, streaming or video on demand, or sometimes, like tonight, we get an early screening.
Yeah. So we got to get ready to get beginning, to get done, to get gone.
Get gone, yes. And that film, of course, is going to be hitting film festivals now and will be released in the spring. And we have an early look at it. And then over in the other camp, playing on Shudder, we have Smoke and Mirrors, the story of Tom Savini. So this is going to be fun, guys. But let's find out who else is here with us tonight. Also joining us this week is Crystal Cleveland, the living dead girl. Crystal, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm wanting it to be colder here. Like it's been like in the 50s here. I want a little colder weather for Christmas. It puts me in the Christmas spirit.
Well, you only got 6 days. 6 days.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's practically over already.
We have in our films, we have on one hand Lin Shaye, and then on the other, the one and only Tom Savini. So that should be fun. Rounding out the crew tonight is my co-host for 6 years over at H&R, the one and only Dave Dreher. Dave, how you doing?
6 years. Has it been 6 years?
It'll be 7 come April. Yes.
Wow, that's hard to believe.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It is. I'm doing well. Thank you. My weather report here, we've had snow all day and very cold. It's like 13 degrees today. So
nice,
cold
nice.
and snow. But it's supposed to be for Christmas. It's supposed to be close to 50. So, you know.
Yep.
What are you going to do?
Yep. Welcome to Gruesome Magazine, the Weather Channel. That's it.
Oh, we always did. Even back in the early H&R days, we always ended up talking about
all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Couldn't stop. All right. Well, before we get into it, Gruesome Magazine is brought to you by ExpressVPN. A VPN is a private virtual network. It is a secure tunnel between your device and the internet. VPNs are used to protect your online traffic from snooping, interference, censorship, and killer hillbillies.
Yes. Yeah.
But VPN needs to change their name to Get Gone.
Get going. ExpressVPN provides rock solid privacy at blazing speeds, no compromises. They have 160 locations across 94 countries, servers everywhere to keep your real location hidden from prying eyes. They have no restrictions. Watch what you want. They keep you anonymous. And they keep you secure. They encrypt everything, which is important. And for those who care, which I do, they have 24/7 support. Which, Jeff, I recall you made good on that, right?
I did. I'm digging it. I like it.
All right. You like it? That's all we need to know. All right. If you would like to try a VPN, ExpressVPN is one you should. Head over to tryexpressvpn.com/gruesome magazine and check it out and see if it suits you. I think it will. It has, Jeff, you hooked yourself up, and Dave, you did too, right?
I do. Yeah, I did. Are they still doing that crazy 3-month free thing?
They are.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
Yep. All right. Well, let's get into our reviews tonight. The first up is, as we've been having fun with the name, Get Gone, which is a film from director Michael Thomas Daniel. The cast includes Lin Shaye, Weston Cage Coppola, and Caitlin Straker. And it is coming out, like we said, in early 2020. Right now it's in film festivals, and we have an early look at this. We are afforded this every once in a while, and we always look forward to these. So let's find out what we thought of that. But here's the synopsis. A hoax-busting group goes on a team-building retreat to Whiskey Flats, Oregon. Almost said but it's Oregon. And runs into trouble as they cross paths with an invasive drilling company that is warring with a very private family. That's pretty close to what happens. So let's find it.
Good synopsis.
It is. It's bearing the lead. But yeah, it's doing it. All right, Jeff, sir, what is your first impression of Get Gone?
My first impression is it's a mixed bag in some areas. I, of course, love Lin Shaye whenever I can get me some Lin Shaye. She is awesome and plays kind of this wacko backwoods mother that is a joy to watch. Mama, actually, is her character's name. And the guy that plays her husband, Robert Miano, is pretty good as well. And we have a Ranger Rico, who's played by Rico E. Anderson, and I think he does a pretty good job too. And there's some decent suspense scenes, I think, but there's a lot of, I don't know how to say it any other way, but a lot of stuff I didn't understand. We have the sons of this couple, of Lin Shaye and Robert Miano, played by, there's Patton and there's Apple, and Patton is played by Weston Cage Coppola, and Apple is played by Bailey Coppola. And I don't know about Bailey Coppola, but Weston Cage Coppola is Nicolas Cage's son.
Oh.
And is also like a grandnephew of Francis Ford Coppola.
And Talia Shire.
Yes. So there's a family thing going there. And also, I'm pretty sure that Caitlin Stryker and Bradley Stryker are related or married, or they play kind of a couple in this show. But I've seen pictures of them online at events together, looking together. Their bios don't say they're married or anything. But anyway, so I liked Lin Shaye. I liked Robert Miano. I liked about half of the characters in the group that goes on the team building trip. Some of them are, I think it's their characters. They're just playing really obnoxious, flighty, irresponsible, immature characters that rub me the wrong way. But they have this thing where the sons, the whole thing is the drilling company has purchased this land and the family has to leave and they won't leave. And apparently they've been affected at birth by the chemicals left by the drilling company. I think they mentioned fracking and drilling. And they're all supposed to have turned white and they're in varying states of mental acuity. Might be the right word. And then the youngest one, I believe he's called Pug. He's feral. He's basically a physical deformity, and all he does is growl and snarl and come after people. So it's a different take on the kind of the inbred hillbilly thing. There's some neat scenes down in tunnels and things where the protagonists are getting chased, and some other interesting things. But oh Lord, the makeup for the people that are supposed to have their skin turned white is just, I don't know. It's just not good. It's different shades on different people, and it's their eyes.
It's blue.
Yeah,
it is blue. And let's be real. It's obvious that it's makeup. It doesn't even look like it's just someone who has been radiated or whatever.
And it's not covering their eyes. It looks it's not complete. Let's put it that way. So I guess that's what I mean. There was a couple spots too where I felt like there was like a scene missing, where I was supposed to have known something, but I didn't know it, and I had to just guess, and maybe that's okay. One example might be the sheriff is barreling up there in his pickup, and he hits one of the sons and Apple, and keeps on driving, and then the next scene, he's walking up a road, and there's no sign of the pickup. So I don't know, just would have been nice to have just a short little pull over, get out, and go sneaking thing. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well or not, but the overall story, and I think it's got possibilities, but I just felt like it was lacking.
That's your first thoughts?
That's your first impression.
I just couldn't stop.
All right, let's find out what the rest of the crew think. Crystal, Cleveland, what was your first impression of Get Gone?
Okay, so wow. Jeff was super helpful because he actually did help me kind of solidify these things in my mind as to how I was really feeling about it and the best way to describe this movie. And I guess what is the real core problem with this film is that it's way too ambitious. It's way too ambitious for, I don't know who the guy is who made it. It's irrelevant who made it. They were trying to make something bigger than what they were able to pull off. That's just the bottom line. And I get that they hired Lin and maybe they thought Lin would be able to save it, but she couldn't save this movie. I agree with Jeff. I love Lin and Robert is amazing too. And Rico, I think that's the ranger dude, right? He's great too. Literally everyone else, no. It just didn't work for me. There were weird, odd cuts. The makeup was bad. The cinematography, at times. But yeah, I think that they had this idea of making some sort of The Hills Have Eyes, and it's more like a Dollar Tree version of that. So
not even Five Below, you just come straight Dollar Tree.
Yeah, that's with that. The makeup is what sends it over. I mean, I don't know if it's the person who color graded it or if it's the makeup artist, but that's unacceptable. Like when I saw that, I was like, are you kidding me? Why spend any money on any other part of this movie and have that? It's just makes me a little sad because I don't know if people were just blowing smoke up their booties, telling them it was great and they were buying it, or I don't know. I'm confused about that. But yeah, Lin, Robert, and Rico actually made it bearable for me. That's my first thoughts.
Oh, I have to sit down. Hang on. All right. Well, we got a couple more. Let's find out. Dave Dreher, what is your first impression of Get Gone?
Well, I think it's going to just pretty much go over the same ground that our two esteemed colleagues have gone over. It really just seemed like their vision was a little bit more than, I'm not going to say their ability, but definitely was out of the reach of their budget. I have a feeling whatever money they had went into Lin Shaye's purse. And everything else just kind of had to do with what they had. With that being said, the story wasn't horrible. I mean, it really wasn't. And there was some moments that weren't too god awful. So I don't want to piss on it too much because, I mean, the guy got his movie made. He tried. He got something out there. But yeah, it's just, and I'm with Crystal. The makeup was kind of the determinant factor. Even the big guy, the big guy who keeps saying "get gone." I mean, he's pretty maniacal at times. I mean, he really is. And unfortunately, they have to show the close up of his horrible makeup job. And his performance is really mired in the poor makeup, which isn't fair to him, but it's a reality. So, yeah, my first impression was I'm not sorry I watched it, but I don't think I'll ever be watching it again.
All right. Well, in our travels to film festivals, we get to see a lot of films where newcoming or upcoming filmmakers get their first shot. This is not his first film, the director, Michael Thomas Daniel. He's done a couple of documentaries and shorts, and he's an actor and other things too. So this is certainly his first feature narrative film. And it shows. It shows. And it reminds me of seeing some of the first films from, other directors that have done similar things. And you learn to recognize, and I'm speaking this way because our writer on our site, at Gruesome Magazine, Joseph Perry, gave this film a pretty positive review. And I understand where he's coming from with this, having seen it now. Because you see the promise in it. And I think outside of some blunders, and you guys are bringing them up, there's the makings of of a future for the actors and the director and cinematography is. Somebody mentioned it was kind of hit and miss, and it is. At times, it's pretty strong.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was ever washed out or really bad. It never felt like we're watching a video or something like that.
Oh,
It felt solid. Certain scenes worked out better. I think when they were indoors, especially on the sets that are made to be the tunnels, I thought it was really well shot and got things. And outdoors, it felt like they had one tent and they kept moving it. And maybe that's what happened, because I don't know if I ever saw more than one tent. And I like that the guide just like walked away, and who knows where he was camping, right? He was camping somewhere else. He walked away from the campsite and then we eventually saw him peeking out behind the bushes again later. But anyway, so yeah, it's Hills Have Eyes in the Woods, which is kind of like Wrong Turn. It's that kind of thing. They give us backstory, some exposition when Rico is kind of challenging the. I'm not really sure who they are. They basically, these new people own the land and are
the drilling company.
The drilling company, right? Right. They're frackers and all kinds of things. They drillers are all kinds of names they call them, but they want them gone. They want them to get gone, and the people there want the others to get gone. Everybody wants everybody to get gone. They give the backstory about the water was basically poisoned, so their children are deformed. They're mutants, and in this case, they call them albinos, but they look nothing like an albino. Their skin is supposed to be like white, but then they never really explain their physicality and their state. There's some choices in here that could have maybe a little bit more. I don't know if you ever saw this movie from '79, Prophecy. Where they made the mutant bears. Could have used
the killer bear.
We could have used a few mutant bears in this movie. Anyway, I'm rambling on. There are parts of this movie I really enjoyed, and there's parts of this movie that really rubbed me the wrong way. And the dialogue was a little frustrating too, because sometimes the dialogue made sense and worked and was imposing, and then other times it was stilted and amateurish. So it's kind of all over the place, which could be a sign of inexperience, or it could be a sign of growth.
So look, I get what you're saying about, kind of judging it based on what the person could do, but that's not where we're judging. We're judging this movie, and it's the choices. Literally, if you watch your own movie and you see that makeup and you think that is acceptable to put out as quality, I question what sort of choices you're going to make in the future. And it undermines every aspect of their filmmaking to me. It is too, whoa.
It weakens the antagonist, right? Because you look at them and you go, yeah, those are like the cardboard tombstones in Plan 9. You realize it, right? It screams, I'm a movie.
If had that been one change, I guarantee you it would have definitely helped my opinion of this movie. I mean, I just kept looking at him, and I couldn't even focus on the movie. All I kept thinking is, why? That's all I kept asking myself.
Yeah. Well, what I had a problem with it is, what was it trying to tell me?
Yes.
Regardless of how good or bad it was, it didn't convey anything to me. I felt like I was missing the point outside of the, that one exposition dialogue that we got from Rico earlier. Right. But that didn't quite sell that explanation. So what was it trying to tell me? And I'm not, and that, I think that's the bigger problem, because you can have odd makeup, and as long as it conveys the problem, you can buy it. And this didn't. That's the bigger problem, I think.
I hate that it bothered me so bad, but I've seen super duper duper low budget movies have much better makeup. And I guess that's what upsets me the most, is I'm like, you looked at that and went, this is great. I'm totally putting this in the movie.
That's what they did. That's what they did. Dave, outside of the makeup, we have some finger chopping. We have a couple of people getting impaled. We have broken necks. We have an axe to the chest, gunshot, right?
Yep. We have all that.
How did all that work for you?
Much better than the albino makeup. That's for damn sure. Yeah, I mean, the rest of the practical effects, again, you could tell they were hampered by budget and perhaps a little bit of freshman jitters. I'm assuming this had to be the first time any of them worked with someone of the caliber of Lin Shaye or anyone like that. I mean, it really seems like they were just kind of, at this stage in their career, a little out of their league. But those other practical effects you mentioned were passable, I would say. Would anybody disagree with that?
No, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it all comes back to that horrible blue albino makeup that was just ridiculous. There's really no getting past it. It really isn't.
Because it was so distracting. It just distracted me from everything else that was going on. Because even when he wasn't on screen, I was thinking about it.
The one character, Apple, he wore a mask a lot.
Yeah, he had like a happy face mask on or something.
Well, he had a couple masks, right? Because he also had the gray mask that he had just finished. And
yeah.
But what I was going with is if they wore the masks instead.
It's so much better. That mask, that white mask, I loved. I thought that was a real mask. I thought it was like had a weird kind of, much. That's what I'm saying. Choices. When people make certain choices, I'm like, oh, I question the choices that they're going to make after. Like, I think it's good to push your limits and to kind of take risks, but to actually look at that and think this is good is when I go, oh. And I mean, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it too, because yes, Lin is a great choice, but she didn't save this movie. So was that the right choice? I don't know.
That scene though, where the girl seeks refuge in her whatever trailer or cabin or whatever she lives in, and she goes a little freaky on her. That was actually a really well done scene.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. I like just about any time that Lin Shaye was on screen was strong.
But explain something to me. I don't know if I missed something after Apple. He gets killed. The ranger guy does something to him, and he's laying out there, and the old guy comes out and does something, and they get up and walk away.
Yep.
What was that all about?
Yeah.
I mean, did he bring him back to life, or what did he do to him? It's never explained. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to spoil it. I was thoroughly confused as to why that happened.
There was another scene like that, so I don't know. Maybe there's an implication that
something supernatural going on, or
chemicals, these chemicals are
the Jason Voorhees syndrome, right? That's what I got. Just the killers are unstoppable when you think. Although Mama thought he was dead, and took harsh action. So it was confused. I was confused as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's it. We got a new title for the movie. It's not Get Gone anymore. It's Weird Edits.
Weird Edits. Well, Jeff, you mentioned that you liked the scenes in they're not in a basement. They're kind of in tunnels, and there's weird, it's wooden, and then there's small rooms and everything. Right. So tell us about why those sets work for you.
Well, they're really claustrophobic, and the way that they shot it really says that. It was crowded. You know how sometimes even on big expensive movies, you'll be like you're in an apartment and you know this person can't afford this apartment, but there's all kinds of room because they need it for the camera and all that stuff. And this one, it was really small and claustrophobic. And I could tell that it would have been, I think it was probably difficult to shoot and have that amount of action in there, but I thought it was pretty well done.
I did like the smaller spaces too. When they were inside and in the cages and that sort of, rooms or whatever that they were locked in. I agree that was more effective, but it didn't feel like anything new to me. There was no new ground here. It was just rehashed stuff from other movies. But
a bit.
There's only 4 stories, isn't that the?
That's what they say.
That's true. But Lin Shaye, like you said, Lin Shaye was good. I really like Rico Anderson. I thought as Ranger Rico,
me too.
I thought he was a lot of fun, especially when he started getting pissed off and cussing up a storm. I liked Bradley Stryker, who was the leader of the group, this hunting group, whatever the heck group they were.
Yeah.
And I was surprised he wasn't in the film more, but I kind of liked him. So I wasn't bothered by the acting. I think, Crystal, you said you were, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, ooh. Ugh.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give our score, and we are going to have to pick a favorite scene, Crystal. So let's do that. And if you can wrap up your final thoughts in one sentence or less, let's do that. Jeff, start us off.
Well, I think we've pretty much given our impressions, and I'm going to give this 2 scores.
Ooh.
Okay, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give this a 2 as is. But really, I think if it wasn't for that makeup, if that negative was gone in some way, I'd go 3 on it.
I like
That's
that.
fair.
I like
Yeah,
that.
that's fair.
Because I think there's some story, there's some tension, there's some interaction with the characters. I like the 2 women working together. I like that scene with Rico telling her to say "fuck yeah,"
Yeah.
That was interesting. My favorite scene though is going to be a piece of dialogue between Rico and Don, played by Robert Miano, when they're outside the cabin and they're kind of having this argument right towards the end where it comes to a physical altercation. I thought that was excellent acting and good dialogue.
Yeah, that's like I said, the dialogue at times like that, and the speech that Rico gives, is on par, is on point, and then other times it was just like really weird. But let's find out what the rest of people. Crystal, give us your score, your final thoughts, and your favorite scene. This I gotta hear.
Like I said, I loved Lin, I loved Robert, and I loved Rico. So that's a positive. I said the cinematography was good at points and stuff. So, I mean, it wasn't Bloodcraft. So it's getting a 1.5, which is higher than I gave Bloodcraft. I have to completely agree with Jeff. If the makeup was better there, it would have definitely helped. I hate that I was so distracted by one thing, but it was done so poorly that it kind of ruined the rest of it for me. Now, when I tell you my favorite scene, you're going to think I'm being poopy, but I'm really not. So my favorite scene was the end, but I'm bummed. No, but it really was like, I really liked Robert for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about him. He's very commanding on screen. And all it was his look at the end. And he kind of gives like this smile. Do you know what I'm talking about? And for some reason, I don't know. I just really liked it. There's some great scenes with Lin as well, but I don't know. I like when a look says more than words do,
Yeah, that I did like that, even though the ending confused me a bit.
Yeah, I know because
I did like the look.
You know why though? Because it makes you think maybe you see that, that there's like police coming, but he doesn't seem worried. Why isn't he worried? It made me think of all kinds of things.
All right, Dave Dreher, you're up next. Final thought, score, and favorite scene.
I think we're all actually kind of on the same page on this one for the most part. And I'm not going to say anything different. I'm going to also give it a 2. There are moments of talent in this movie, and then there's also moments of sheer agony. So, kind of go into it knowing that. My favorite scene is the one I already mentioned, the one with Lin Shaye, when the one girl who has escaped finds her and, she's sitting in there and realizing that this lady is fucking crazy. I thought, Lin did a real good job with that. She really did. But then that's followed by the scene, and that's a great scene. And then they knock her out or whatever. She passes out. I think they drugged her, right?
Yeah.
And so he carries her out, and it looks like he's putting her in a box, and then he gets in the box. And I'm like, the hell are they doing? But actually, I guess that's supposed to be the entrance to the caves. But it was a box. So apparently, we didn't actually have an entrance to a cave. We are a hole in the ground. We had a box. Yeah. So we had to suspend disbelief there. Because literally, I'm like, why is he putting her in a box? Why is he getting in the box?
I thought it was a whole barrel.
Yeah, I thought he was putting like a coffin or something. I wasn't sure what was happening at first.
Yeah, but that's just indicative of this movie. Again, it was some of the I'm sure were financial restraints. They did the best they could with what they had. But, we had that great scene with Lin, and then we go to that, which you're just kind of like looking at it going, what the fuck? So, but again, I didn't hate it, and I can't really say that I didn't enjoy watching it. So I'll give it a 2 if it comes around, and if you can see it for free, knock yourself out.
Look at that. All right. Yeah. All right. For me, it's much of the same, although I think I liked it slightly better. And yeah, I don't want to drill it anymore, but I'm going to give it a 2.5. And yeah. And the reasons why it can't get higher is the same reasons Jeff stated earlier on. The scenes anytime that Lin Shaye's on was really, really good. And again, I liked Rico as well. I'm going to pick Rico's scene when he's trying to get in the door, and he's being chased by something, and he doesn't really know what yet. We know what it is, but he doesn't know what it is, and the girls don't know who he is, so they're holding the door shut, and he's like, and he just goes off. And he's like, let me tell you, if you don't let me in, I'm going to die. And I don't know. He really won me over throughout this film, especially like when he was giving the 2 fracker guys hell earlier in the film when they were wanting.
Yeah.
The way he handled them, I really liked. But so anyway, that scene there is going to be my favorite. The scene when Lin Shaye attacks Rico would have been better if I knew what was happening. If I could tell what was actually happening. Was that an edit? Was that an edit?
That's that whole edit thing. That's that whole segment of there's these just cuts, and I don't know what happened, but it was strange for all of us. Mm-hmm.
I had to check that out a couple times. I didn't get what he did to her. I thought she did him a second time.
Well, he clobbered her. That was great.
Yeah. He just gave her the old left hook.
Knocked it clean out. Oh my gosh. Well, Whiskey Flats, here we come. Here we go. Look for it at a film festival near you, and then being released later in 2020. Up next, over at Shudder, from director Jason Baker, is a project that has been on the books for quite some time. I'm sure Dave can tell us a little bit about it. The title of the documentary, I'm going to call it a documentary. It is a documentary, right? I'm not wrong there. Yeah. Smoke and Mirrors, the story of Tom Savini, and it is literally what it says. It is the life and times of Tom Savini. We find out about his childhood. We find out about getting in his first loves. We find out about the going into Vietnam. We find out about his falling in love with acting and makeup and film, and eventually getting into the business and how he did that. And it is an incredible introspective look into his life, with Tom Savini providing much of the details, which is an often isn't part of these kinds of documentaries, and I'm glad that he could be there to do that and is there. So Dave, if you can, give us a little background about this, because you've known about this for a while, and also give us your first impression of the final product, Smoke and Mirrors, the story of Tom Savini.
Yeah, this has been in the works for quite a while. I mean, we've had the trailer up on Savini.com probably for 8 years, 7 years. So like, it's been up there a really long time. So this has been in the works for quite some time, and everything, once it started coming together, came together very, very quickly, actually. And it really works as a sensational counterpart to the book, his book that just came out, just called Savini, which some of the parts of it are taken right out of the book, or parts of the book were taken right out of the film. I guess it depends on how you want to look at it. But he's been telling these stories, for those of us fortunate to be around him enough. We've been hearing these stories. I've known Tom for 23 years now, and, I've heard these things over and over and over again. But it's really great, to have something where fans can see him. Tom has gotten a bad reputation because of the internet, of just being unapproachable and being a dick and being hard to get along with. And I think anybody who watches this now will realize that that's all just bullshit. It's just a bunch of haters, because Tom is a amazing human being. And it was really touching. Crystal in the pre-show was saying about it, at one point she was actually like starting to tear up a little bit. I mean,
no, I cried. I actually cried. And I'm not a crier.
This guy has led a life. And I mean, he's done things. And one of the first things he ever told me, going back some 23 years ago, and it's very apparent in this, is the more you do, the more you get to do. And that's kind of become a mantra. And you see it in this film when he talks about, how he would just show up at movie theaters in full makeup and people will go, holy shit, look at that guy. And before he knew it, he was playing Dracula in the theater, just because he took the time to go and do it. And those type of stories are just all through this. But the film itself, I think is sensational. I mean, I really loved it. It's an hour and a half long. For me, it felt like it was 5 minutes long. It just kind of flies by, and it's fascinating. Jason did a amazing job of piecing all this together. Jason has been around for a bit now, but he kind of walked into this and, was kind of tasked with putting it together into a final product. And man, he knocked it out of the park. It seems everyone's reaction to this so far has been stellar. I haven't heard a bad thing yet. Has anybody?
No,
I haven't heard any bad things. It is remarkable. And an incredible look at his life. And it while it does, touch and concentrate at times on the films, it really is about him, his life, and his, the family that surrounded him and guided him early on in life, to the family he has now and how he's guiding them. And that is the remarkable thing about this film is the family aspect of it.
I love that, the revelation of the fact that, he would just tape his father being his father.
Those were great scenes, though. Yeah. Those really were.
When he says, like, anytime I want to be with my dad, I just put in a tape. There he is. And it's just like, damn, that's heart-wrenching and awesome and all that, all at once.
Yeah. And at the same time, he wants to spend time with his grandson and be that guy for him. So that's remarkable, too. So.
Yeah, but obviously I'm very tainted on this project. But as far as I'm concerned, Academy Award nominee.
Nah, for best documentary. Maybe. All right, Crystal. What was your first impression of Smoke and Mirrors?
It shocked me, to be completely honest with you. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting it to be as emotional and raw as it was. I really expected it to focus completely on his school and his special effects and all the superficial side of his, career. I say superficial versus family or whatever. But wow, we really got to kind of see who he is. And it was a little weird to me in the beginning because he and I had a pretty similar upbringing. Both had like an much older father. My, youngest, he only had 4 brothers. I have 6 and a sister. He had 4 and a sister, and they were all much older than him. Like mine were all much older than me. So it was more like I had 6 fathers, like he was talking about. And then he was a journalism major at one point, and we know that I was a journalism major. So it's all kind of weird. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. The fascination with magic, which was okay. I was in love with David Copperfield as a kid. It struck me at my core at some points because, you kind of watch what he went through and the marriages, and then not being able to raise some of his children. And I think he did the right thing by allowing it to happen the way that it did instead of fighting it. That's not always the right thing. But then when it came down to it, he, getting his daughter, I know I just keep going on. I won't talk about too much of it. That's supposed to be first thoughts. But I loved that we were able to see a very real and more. I feel like he's the type that's like me as well, where, he's not very emotional, but he's also completely emotional, which seems odd, but it makes complete sense to me. You kind of bottle all that up, at one point. But yeah, so needless to say, I liked it. That's, yeah.
Yeah, that and Rubber Band Wars.
Ah.
Yeah. So, Crystal, we met him this past summer at Days of the Dead in Charlotte. And we got to spend some time talking to him because at the time we were there, it was kind of slow at that particular time. So nobody was there. So we got to talk to him at that point.
I would have been completely different had I had seen that.
No, that's what I was going to ask.
Yes.
Is the person that we talked to there, is that the person you saw in this film?
No. Mm-mm. I totally see how he has this reputation, but that's not really who he is. But people see me and they think, oh, she's bitchy or what. And I'm the exact opposite. A lot of it is that I'm quiet. I can be very quiet and I can be very shy. I know that seems shocking to you guys, but that's just because I'm comfortable with you. But he gets a bad rap. Like sometimes when you're very sensitive, you honestly come across as being more hardcore because you're just trying to protect yourself. And it's kind of an interesting thing that happens there. And yeah, no, I don't know how I would have treated him. I'm like, this was a lot for me to take in, honestly. I mean, right? Like, it was like, oh God, I cried. And I don't, if I typically do cry, I usually cry for other people. And so crying for him makes more sense than crying for myself. But wow, like him talking about going to conventions and it was all he had. And like, that's how he was trying to get us. I was like, oh God. And then the whole thing with his daughter. Yeah. I'm glad he's in a good place now.
He seems to be. All right, Jeff Mohr, sir. What is your first impression of Smoke and Mirrors?
I absolutely loved it too, and I agree with everything Dave and Crystal said. I was astounded. I mean, this is why I do these podcasts, really. I mean, when I dig into stuff in the classic era, or even when I watch a movie just for fun on my own, I hardly ever just sit down and watch a movie. I go through the Internet Movie Database, I look at their bios, I cross-reference stuff, and I try to find stories about the people because there's always more to them behind what we see. What were their lives like, what led them to where they are, what happened to them. So this was like, it was wonderful that he opened up to that extent, I think. And I all the stuff that he said about his family and growing up, I too got I forget who we were talking to, but the connection between magic and special effects, getting you to see something that you think is more complicated than what it really is. You visualize it a certain way. So he talks a little bit about that, but I really like too, he talked about his, I don't know how many times he's been married, but I don't believe I heard him say anything malicious or vindictive about any of his wives.
No.
And that would be a very easy thing to do. So I felt like he owned his side of the street, and I don't know. It was touching all the way through, and to see where he's at now and how happy he is and how at peace he is with the choices he's made, and things like we don't know about, why he's not doing as many special effects and why he's.
Oh yeah, the hands. I forgot.
But also not as much traveling, right? And being able to be with his daughter and his grandson and new grandson, I think, too. So yeah, I thought it was very touching. One of the things I really got, you were talking about his brothers, was how he related parts of himself that he felt like he had gotten from each one of his brothers. And I thought that was a really very self-aware insights. So anyway, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I thought that part about his upbringing was incredibly fascinating because he shared. He didn't share everything, but he shared just enough that we get this beautiful picture of his life at that time for what it was. Be it the happy times and the good times and the bad times, everything that was happening, because there were struggles and there were happy things, and he was sharing it, and we really get into it, and I love that.
And his brother's death must have been horrendous, but he tells it he doesn't really tell it that way.
No.
Well, that's when his brother was 28.
Story.
Yeah, his brother was 28 though, and he said the closest in age to him was 13 years older, so he was very young.
Right.
And
the fact that his father had him when he was 50, so he was when he was 10 years old, he was a 60-year-old man, and had worked a hard life at the mill. So it's wonderful, really, looking at anybody like this, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate it, and I love that it was based on that more than it was the films. Now the films are a healthy part of it. And you definitely, as horror fans, want to see that part. But I was as fascinated with him talking about doing the plays in Fayetteville, which is right down the street. I never knew. And we get some shots of when he did the production of Dracula, and I was utterly fascinated with that aspect of his personality. And it really kind of shows, like, as fans, when I look at these people that have become idols, we really barely scratch the surface of who they truly are.
Yeah. Yep.
Very true.
So Dave, as somebody that's had close experience with Tom, the Tom that we see sitting in the chair telling stories, that's really him, right? That's the person as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's just him. He kind of wears his heart on his sleeve. That's Tom Savini. That's him. And when there's something going on stressful in his life, you know it, because he wears his heart on his sleeve. And when he's in a good, happy place, like he has been for a while now, he wears it on his sleeve. He does not have a mean or corrupt bone in his body. He really doesn't. He's one of the kindest, most caring people I've ever met. And I think it's great that the other fans will get to see him in that light now as well. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah. And Dave, we see a lot of celebrities and filmmakers, and some fans as well, talk about him in various lights. There's one guy he talks about, like, the first time he met him, he thought he was a dick, and it turned out he was real close friends over time. But there's so many in there that just, from Tony Todd to George Romero.
Oh yeah, Alice Cooper.
Yeah. They give these wonderful stories and insight into them. How close to that is to real life as well?
I think very. I think people in a professional sense have a real appreciation for what he has accomplished and continues to accomplish, quite frankly. So I think it's all really very heartfelt. He's very well respected in professional circles. He's kind of now at this point in his life become the elder. You know what I mean? You know how that can happen sometimes. He's kind of become that person, and that's kind of really great to see too. I just wanted to say, I'm afraid I'll forget about it, but I had forgotten about Savini Land. When I first met Tom, Savini Land was still a place. It still existed for about the first 3 or 4 years I knew him, and then something happened, and the place where it was located was getting torn down for a parking lot or something, and he had to move all his stuff out of there. But the very first time that my friend Chuck Hudson, hey Chuck, and I drove over there, that's where we met Tom. We didn't meet him at his house. We met him at Savini Land, and then he drove us up to his house. So just seeing Savini Land again and some of the pictures from in there, I've got my own personal pictures of when we were there, but I'd kind of forgotten some of that because it was 20 some odd years ago. But that place was amazing. I mean, I can remember walking around in the attic and just like, hey, what's this? And you pick it up and it was like E.G. Marshall's head from Creepshow. He's like, G.G. Marshall's head. Yeah, we pushed the cockroaches through it. You remember that? I've actually got a picture of myself holding it. But I mean, it was just, that shit was just strewn everywhere. Can you imagine? I mean, it's like museum quality shit. It was just tossed in a corner.
Well, Doc, remember he mentioned that at his house how much stuff he had. Do you remember that? And then I believe it was his wife that said that there's videos up on YouTube about all of the cool stuff that he has. I can't even imagine. Be so amazing. But
unbelievable.
So one of the things that I found very telling about who he is as a person is it's not even just that everyone has respect for him. They all seem to say that working with Tom was fun. And it's not fun to work with an asshole. So he's clearly not an asshole. Okay. Like they all said it was fun. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Well, he challenges. Yeah, I mean, he challenges. I remember being. They actually show it on the. It was just a quick scene in the documentary, but I was standing right there when it happened. But when they did Chill Factor, which was supposed to be like a series of short films, they only ever made one of them. But we drove over to watch him film it, and he decided that he was going to have a shot of a door, and you'd see the keyhole. Like one of those old skeleton key type things. And you would zoom in and you would go through the keyhole into the room where the kid was tied into the bed. He wanted it to be a one shot, no edits, no cuts, nothing. And Matt Green was the special effects guy on that. And he told Matt, this is what I want. Make it happen. And, very sternly, I don't want to use the word dickishly, but he was just like, there is no discussing this. This is going to happen and you've got an hour. Make it happen. And he did. He made it happen. And it's probably the best shot in that thing. So, I mean, I don't know if is challenging you and making you do something that you're not even sure you can do being a dick, then maybe he is. But it just comes down to, that whole thing of he knew what Matt's abilities were and he pressed him to make it happen. And he does that a lot. He's done it to me when on the website and stuff, demanded things that I didn't know how the fuck to do it. But you know what? I taught myself how to do it and then I did it. So in retrospect, 10 years later, you go back and you go like, man, I'm glad he was like that to me.
He does that to himself though. Like it's obvious about how, when he talked about his father and about how his father, was kind of a jack of all trades and he felt like he should be that too. And I think that's such a great way to think because I think that if we're I love learning new things. I love doing new things. I love, constantly upping the ante, as it were. And I think if you're not that type of person naturally, having someone like that in your life is beneficial.
Yeah. And I think that really came through in this documentary. Again, kudos to Jason for really giving us a true look into who Tom Savini is. Because it very well could have just become a showreel, like you said, for his school. And it's not that at all. I mean, so there's some of that in there, but that's not what this is about.
Oh, my gosh. With the kid. Oh, my God. I cried with the little kid. Yeah. Oh, Donnie. Was his name Donnie or something? Ooh. He's like, Savini made this? Oh.
I remember when that aired. That was that. What was that show called? Extreme Edition? Home?
I don't know, but I remember when that aired. That warmed my little heart. I was like, that is so sad and so cute. And that kid is so happy.
Yeah. Well, then he went on to graduate from the school. He actually graduated from the school.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, Jeff, you've been awful quiet listening to us. Anything you want to add real fast about what you got out of this particular documentary?
No, other than, this will sound a little weird maybe, but we were just talking about on 80s, the sort of evolution of stop motion animation and people getting fired up about Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen seeing King Kong, and that turned into an obsession for him. And then people like the Chiodo brothers who did Killer Clowns saw that stuff and started doing their own things when they were kids, and how you can actually see, that like he talks about Dick Smith's formula for blood, and then Greg Nicotero and how much he owes to Tom. And so you see this whole line, and Tom going to Rob Bottin for advice on Fluffy and Creepshow. So all that stuff is just, I don't know. I found it very touching and honest as somebody could be about themselves, and then a portrait of his life. I just loved it.
Yeah, portrait of his life. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, and being influenced by the Man of 1,000 Faces. Story of
Yes. Yep.
All right, well, let's wrap this up. Let's give, I don't know if we need to give final thoughts, but you're welcome to, score and favorite element. I mean, what do we get? It's not a scene because there are no scenes. We'll figure something out.
I'm like, how do we
Dave,
do that?
I don't know. But
Sure, throw it to me first to try to figure this out. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if I take emotion out of it and friendship and all that out of it, at the end of the day, it's just a really well done film. So it's definitely worth seeing. The fact that it's about Tom, who I don't think anyone would argue is a living legend of the genre, just makes it all the better. I loved everything about this movie. I'm giving it 100,000 stars.
100,000 stars.
I like it.
Favorite. I'm trying to think of something that I'm going to just go back to that thing. I thought it was just really touching about how he made all those films of his father. That just, I mean, I read it in the book first. That's something that I had never come up in many of our conversations. I read it in the book, but somehow it was even more powerful hearing him say the words himself with pieces of the actual footage, overlaid over his words. It's just very moving. It's very good filmmaking. And I like that. So definitely, check this out. It's a must watch for any horror fan.
Yeah. Did you know about the duck story?
Yes, I did know about the duck story.
Okay,
yes. And there's one, and again, I want to tease the book a little bit. The book is out. It's called Savini. And I know, Jeff, you said you had just got yours, but everyone else can get it. I'm not going to tell you what the story is, but it's early in the book. And I knew nothing about this. And it's actually, it's horrifying about the kidnapping. I believe the chapter is something like The Day I Was Kidnapped or something like that. It's pretty.
What?
It's pretty. But seriously, it's. I know you guys have talked about how he opens up and is honest. This is something that is. I still can't believe it. I mean, I know it's true and everything else, but it's just like holy shit. So, buy the book. and read what I'm talking about.
Oh, it's a hefty sucker too. You'll be thrilled when you get it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It did really good. That Michael, I always F up his name. I'm sorry, Michael Ariosi, I believe his name. He's the one that did the Kane Hodder autobiography and all this. He does fantastic work. It's really exceptional. So get it if you can. But anyway, back on track. Smoke and Mirrors, top notch. Loved it. Everyone must see it.
All right, Jeff Mohr, you're up next. How many thousands of stars are you going to give it, sir?
Well, geez, see, I don't know Tom, and I know Dave knows Tom, but doing movies on the decades before the 70s and the 80s, you get to know Tom's work, and it's seminal. And so to have somebody open up like this, I loved it. So I'm, I'll go traditional, but I'll go 5 stars, maybe 100,000. I don't know.
100,001.
I can't imagine it being any better. It was extremely interesting, heartfelt, emotional, fascinating. And as far as a favorite sequence, I think I'm going to go back to the thing where he's kind of going through his brothers and saying, I got this that I work out for my brother, and I got this, he likes to from his other brother, and he goes through the whole thing, and from his dad, the work ethic and the wanting to be able to fix things and understand how they work and stuff like that. It was very, very cool.
Very cool. Crystal Cleveland.
Words fail me.
Words fail you. I like that. Crystal Cleveland, what is your final thoughts, score? Favorite scene? It's not a scene, but go ahead.
So wait, how many stars did Dave give?
100,000.
100,000 stars. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's about right. No, yeah, I really like it's hard to judge it as just a straight up movie because it's so different. I think it's a must watch. I think for anyone who is a horror fan, if you're not a Tom Savini fan, I question a lot, at least his special effects, whatever you've heard about him. I think this is absolutely going to kind of blow your mind and just make you realize he's a real person with real feelings. And when you talk bad at people, you talk bad about people being a booty head. So, there's a lot of good on this, but for some reason, I have a theater background. I was in the theater a lot too. I know. See, I guess maybe I just related to this way too much, but
drawing that parallel.
Yeah, it's like so crazy. But he discussed that he did his theater makeup for the Mirror. And I don't know if y'all have ever done theater, but like he was explaining about how when you theater makeup, really it can be pretty shitty and it still looks good from stage because it's so far away and with the lights and stuff. But I love that he did it for the Mirror, that he did it to look really good. His level of excellence is makes me happy. It just makes me really happy. And then there was this moment where it showed him as Benjamin Franklin, and I just think it's brilliant. I just think he's brilliant. That is all. He's good.
That's all. Yeah. I really like this documentary. Now, a gripe maybe you could say is that it's not very cinematic. It's not a cinema type biography, which to me is a plus because it's very intimate. And the story that is being told here deserved that approach. And I'm glad that's the approach they took. It did go by really fast, but it is crammed full of stuff. It is amazing to see this life unfold and learn about everything that's happening. And there's surprises in there that you didn't know about his, unless you really know him, maybe like Dave, there's many things in there I had no clue about. And it's really touching. It really gets to you. And I think not only is it a really positive, strong look at this man, Tom Savini, but also of celebrity too. And, because some of his hardships and some of the things he went through, the highs and the lows, I don't think he's alone in some of those. I would imagine most everybody that's included in this particular film has probably had similar experiences in one way or another. And it really does. That intimacy really, I found, it woke me up a little bit about, these idols that we have, these horror idols. And I really appreciate that. Really appreciate it. It was really strong, and I can't recommend it enough. I'm going to give it 100,000 stars. Yes, I'm all out of stars for sure. What I like the most is, and I really found fascinating, was the theater work, like Crystal saying, but that he says he always misses it. He always wants to do it. He'd love to do it more. And the shots of him down in Fayetteville doing like Dracula and stuff, and like when the bat, when Dracula goes in and the bat comes back out, right? And it's just really wonderful stuff, and getting staked, right? And the smoke's coming out. It almost presented him as an entirely different light, a different life, a different passion for him than that we're used to as horror fans from the movies, from Creepshow to Dawn of the Dead. That's what most of us see, right? That's most of us kind of put together, or is acting. But I don't know. That really got to me.
I mean, most of us remember. Well, Crystal probably don't. She's younger than us three old parts. But I mean, back in the day, we waited. I waited with bated breath for the next Fangoria because Tom was always within the first 5 pages of the magazine. Always. I mean, he was a superstar to us horror nerds back in the day. He really was.
Wow. It's okay. So see, I've seen Tom many, many times because he's usually at Texas Frightmare, but I've never really had the balls to go up and talk to him. I only went up and talked to him with Doc because, Doc was there. But I'm like, I can't imagine if I had seen him in magazines as a child and then where you are now, Dave. Like, that's awesome, right? Like,
yes,
it's awesome.
It doesn't even make any sense. It really doesn't. Yeah. I mean, even after all these years, I'm still like, what? Like the other day I was sitting here and he just texted me for something and Sherry's like, who's that? My wife, Sherry, who's that? That's Tom. It's fucking Tom Savini. Tom Savini is texting me. He just texted me. I mean, it's just nuts. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Anyway, it I don't know that there's any special effects artists now that I can think of that have that level of superstardom that he had in my eyes back in the day. I can't think of any.
Nicotero's probably the closest.
Yeah, I was going to say that. The closest. And that's all, because of Walking Dead has propelled him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Not that he, K&B was already big for a lot of us horror fans, but now for Walking Dead, a lot of other people do too. But he's also a student of Tom, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's where all those, even Howard Berger, worked with him. I mean, that's where, KMB was. I think he even says in the documentary that Nicotero was like, "Hey, let's go out to the West Coast and start up this firm." And he didn't want to leave because of his daughter, right. So he didn't. Or it would have been KNSB or whatever. But yeah, they're definitely all of the same ilk.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if you want to see what we're talking about, we recommend that you do. It's playing on Shudder now, and it's it's under 2 hours. So
yeah, it really goes by quick though.
Well worth it. So much good stuff.
Do it.
All right. The films we covered tonight are Get Gone from Michael Thomas Daniel, starring Lin Shaye, Weston Cage, and others. It is in film festivals right now. Will be coming out in early 2020. So look for that. And if you want to hear more about it, read the review from Joseph Perry. And Joseph Perry gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then playing on Shudder, we have Smoke and Mirrors, the story of Tom Savini. All right. Dave, Jeff, Crystal, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
It was awesome.
Awesome. All right. Let's say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.